Okay, welcome everybody to another video on Modern Zoo. Going to just be running through a bit of a tournament report and deck tech today. This is the list. I went to a RCQ here in the UK in Cardiff at Firestorm Games, a really good store. So if you are UK based, I do highly recommend going and checking them out. Based in an old car showroom, so loads of space, really light, great food and things. So yeah, do go and check them out, and shout out to Dave for running it. So yeah, I made the semi-finals before losing to Eldrazi Tron, and this was the list I chose. A bit of a combination of a lot of lists online, really. I just wanted to go over a bit of a deck tech and then just go through how some of the games played out. So the list is fairly stock, I think. It's maybe a little bit threat light. The big point at the moment is whether to include Wild Nicatl or another one of those kind of one drop. Some people are trying that Chocobo, is it, from Final Fantasy? I really don't like Nicatl, but I can definitely see the appeal of it, and people that do play it have, it's a good discussion to have. I think I'm just too much of a mid-range player at heart to like top decking a 1-mana 3/3. But the argument for playing it is that against a lot of decks like Belcher and Storm and things, you need that 1-mana creature on turn 1 to just start the clock. So against Belcher, you just want to be going, play the creature and go 3/3/3. But yeah, I went without. I went with the one Consign in the main, which was fairly standard. Don't know if people are moving away from it now. Gone the full 4 Flayed, 3 Fable, only 2 Tribal Flames, which might be a change I make going forward. And I'm on the full 4 Ragavan. So people that play Wild Nicatl usually cut down to 3. But yeah, Ragavan was great all day. So just go over a few things. So a key combo, if you like, is Leyline Binding, Scion of Draco. Having both of those on the field at the same time, grant all of your creatures all colours and therefore all keywords from Scion of Draco, including hexproof. So against a lot of matchups, that's just game over. Obviously, Leyline Binding can be cast for 1 mana off of Triome and Steam Vents potentially, or if you have the lands, you usually fetch. If you need to cast Ragavan on turn 1, it's usually Steam Vents, and then Steam Vents into Temple Garden lets you cast a 4/4 Carvu on 2 if they kill the Ragavan. Anything else? Fable, discarding Flayed is obviously very good, and you can consign the Flayed's trigger in this. So if you have 4 mana available and you go Flayed, you consign the sacrifice trigger and you get to keep it around. So yeah, Ragavan was really good all day, just generating mana when I needed it, stealing sometimes the opponent's cards and getting us some card advantage. But the biggest thing was mana. Sometimes I had a couple of games where fairly unfortunate to mull to 5 whatever, started with a Ragavan, and maybe I kept 1 land, which I don't like doing in this deck, 1 land and a Ragavan. But sometimes you have to, and it just paid off, and it just did so much work making treasures, and it fixed mana quite a lot as well. If I was short on a certain colour, like if I didn't have blue for Stubborn Denial, I was able to fix that and things, so that was really good. Anything else? Return to the sideboard. So again, the only real change I made was including 3 Thoughtseers, which was becoming fairly popular, but I really liked it. It was really good into unfair matchups where you're just able to go Thoughtseers, take their payoff or whatever. It was really actually good in the mirror. I put it in one of the mirror matches, and was able to just take the opponent's Scion of Draco before they could play it with Leyline, so I really liked that. Wrath of the Sky is obviously very good. So yeah, things to consider for the future. I think I would maybe play more Tribal Flames. There are a few times where I was just short, the opponent just turned the corner, and I was digging as much as I could for any sort of burn spell, and just a deal 5 would have been really nice. think maybe, I don't know what I cut for it, maybe a Flage, although I know that's burn, maybe one Fable. Fable was good all day as well, actually. You know, just that little bit of top end, a little bit of card selection, again, the token able to ramp you a little bit, and then if you ever get to a stage where you get to, you know, copy Scion of Draco or whatever, then that's really, really good. Or Carvu, you know. Another thing to say is Arena of Glory, so that's obviously very good at hasting out a Flage out of the graveyard, which is its main purpose, but you can also haste any other creature. So something that came up actually quite a bit is making 2 red mana from Arena of Glory, adding a green, and then you have to use them to cast the same creature. So you know, red and then a green, you can cast a hasty Ragavan and a hasty Carvu. Or it's worth noting as well, you don't have to use the mana on a creature. So if you make 2 red mana from Arena of Glory, you can use one of it to haste a Ragavan and one of it for a lightning bolt, for example. So yeah, matches wise, played the Mirror, which was, they were playing the Doorkeeper Thrall Flage Null Drifter version, and I think that version is probably, it might be good in certain metas, but I don't think it's as good into us. You know, at one point they had a Doorkeeper Thrall out, and I was just able to put my own Flage into play, which ended up just winning me the game. Just, yeah, watch out for Null Drifter, but again, sometimes sacking a land or whatever isn't too bad, and it's only a 4/4. Leyline Scion is very, very good, so sometimes want to, you know, sometimes we need to target our Leyline Bindings at their Leyline of the Guild Pact, and we do bring in Wear Tear, usually get a good, we can either kill a Binding or a Leyline, or it does kill Scion of Draco as well. We also bring in Consign. It's kind of, you can always find a target if you need to, whether it's consigning a Carvu trigger or a Fable trigger or your own Flage, but mostly it's for the risk that the opponent goes Leyline into Scion of Draco on turn 2. I also brought in Thoughtseize, again, to mitigate that. And given that we're not massively heavy on threats, Thoughtseize can just strip away a key part. I also, I don't really like things like Lightning Bolt in the matchup. I can't, because it's not much to kill. Maybe you can see it more for the Thrall version, but I don't think so. I don't think so really. So yeah, that's the kind of plan in that matchup. Then played against Gruul Prowess, which went very poorly. Just got 2-0'd. And it happens, you know, these things happen in tournaments. You know, you get paired into a matchup that you didn't necessarily expect, but it was kind of just mono red Prowess splashing green for, it had the 2-mana red creature Seek the Beast, that creature, and also the 1-mana green spell that you name land or non-land, and it goes and gets you one of those. So played against that, and I don't, you know, there was a couple of turns where they just kind of had it. You can, you know, they go Slicks or Show Off, and they had a Lava Dart or whatever. So yeah, and sometimes not a lot you can do about that. I did bring in things like Wrath of the Skies, Pyroclasm, but yeah, I also, you have to be, the tournament was actually open Decklist in the end due to a malfunction on the part of the software, the website they were using to do decklists. And that does change the tournament quite a bit, because I knew what I was against. So, and I could see that I had 1 copy of Blood Moon in the sideboard, so I did bring in Wear Tear, and there was an awkward turn where I had to kind of play around Blood Moon, and it stopped me pressing my game plan, and yeah, just kind of got. But then moved on to round number 3, which is against Eldrazi Aggro. So think it's the kind of double lands, like Eldrazi Temple and things, but then it has things like Eldrazi Linebreaker to give haste and that sort of thing. So I think that matchup's probably slightly easier because our creatures are sort of just as cheap but tend to be bigger. Things like Flage killing their creatures is very, very good. Consign to Memory, very, very good as well. We get, you know, 4 of those post board. and not too much more to say about that. The only one thing would be Thought Not Seer. If they Thought Not Seer and the trigger's on the stack and you only have one piece of removal in, pretty obvious, but just use the removal. You'll draw the card and then they get to see it and exile it if it's a non-land, but yeah, usually worth doing. Sometimes you don't want to if you have two pieces, so they take one and then you get the card that they don't see. But yeah, in general, I think it's usually quite good. So yeah, I'm 2-1 at this point, and then moved on to round number 4. So yeah, round 4 was Amulet Titan. Game 1 just got tightened. I think they just turn 3'd me, and there wasn't too much I could do. Brought in my Thought Seizes, my Wear Tear, my Wrath of the Skies, some Consigns, and took a mull to 5 on the play. But this is one of the matchups where Ragavan just kind of soloed. It can't always do this, and you can't always rely on it because of the what's it called? Arboreal Grazer blocking. But this game, I mulled to 5. I think I only had a basic mountain, and Ragavan just kept hitting. Drew me, made me the mana I needed, and I was just able to close it out from there. And actually, the same thing happened in game 3 on the draw, where Ragavan was just doing its thing. Worth noting that a lot of things, like against Titan, I sided out all of the Leyline of the guild packs. You don't need them; they're not really interacting with your Scion. If they do, it's via Beseiju, and they can usually Beseiju twice for Leyline anyway. Be careful with bindings. They can hit, like if you binding a Titan, they can Beseiju the binding and then get the Titan back. Yeah, I don't think too much more to say on that one. I think it's a fine matchup. But sometimes you can just get got by Titan, and there's not much you can do about it. After this, we go into round number 5, and I think it was a high 20 sort of number of players, 28 or so, 3-1. You're looking at an ID potentially. I'm paired into a very good player. And due to open Decklist, I know that they are on Eldrazi, which is quite a hard matchup. So I go for the ID, and there's just a few things to consider when looking at IDs. So I'm not always the best at looking at the maths, but in this situation, it looked like I was maybe 80% to make it. And I decided to go for that rather than play a difficult matchup against a very good player where, if you think about it, the odds are probably, 50-50. So sometimes you have to take your best shot. IDing in general is a bit weird. The ability to draw, like loads of people drew after the last round, after round 4, which I think it locked maybe the top 6 players, so the last round was really only for the next 2 to make it into top 8. But yeah, got the draw, and then went on to the quarterfinals, which was actually streamed, so I was lucky enough to be on camera, and it was against Belcher. I was seeded below, so I was on the draw, and game 1 is a weird game where I kind of bluff a little bit that I have a stub, develop my board, and then there's a turn where my opponent sort of goes for it with Lotus, Bloom and Tameshi, and they just have to find a Belcher in maybe the top 15 cards of their library, and they just don't find one. They had to go for it because of I just had lethal the next turn, so yeah, managed to get there then. Brought in all my consigns, all my stubs, mystical disputes and stuff, and then game 3 was just game 2 is a lot better, attacking with Ragavan and bolting a blocker. Again, we side out a Leyline of the guild pack, it's just too slow, and then yeah, just play the tempo game, Carvu, Ragavan, hold up stub and consign, and yeah, just get there. Leyline Binding I did keep in. It's a weird inclusion, but I think it's usually fine. Thoughtseize was again great here, but Binding is good for Tameshi, and it's also good if they go Lotus Bloom, and then you can Binding in their upkeep to stop them getting the mana in their main phase to cast Belcher. Do be wary that Lotus Bloom can just sack itself for 3 mana, which instantly allows Whir for another Lotus Bloom, so that is something they can do. A couple of tips and tricks for this one: you can consign the ability to cast the Lotus Bloom. So if they put it on suspend, you can consign. You don't have to consign the actual spell. You can consign the. There's a couple of triggers. So there's a trigger to take the final suspend counter off, and then there's a trigger for them to be able to cast it. Consigning that last trigger means it stays in exile, which is better than consigning the Lotus Bloom itself, because then they can't bring it back with Tameshi from the graveyard. So something to be aware of there. Consign obviously also hits Belcher itself, so yeah, very good card in the matchup. There was something else as well. Be aware of what mana they have. They need white mana to activate Tameshi, and also be aware of if you might know that they have a Disrupting Shoal in hand via them revealing it to one of the Thundertrap trainers or something, or a previous Thoughtseize. They play mostly, I think it's 2s and 3s, so just be wary of what other cards they might have when thinking about how to play around Disrupting Shoal. But yeah, managed to take that one down. I think it's a very good matchup for us, and one we'd like to see quite a lot. Moved on to the semi-finals again on stream, and it was against Colourless Eldrazi Tron. Had a weird one in game 1 where I was on the draw and I had the choice. They go turn 1 Urza's Mine Expedition map. I'd gone pre-game action Leyline of the Guild Pact. I could go land. I went fetch land, which obviously all types. I could either go Binding the map or I could go play Ragavan. I went play Ragavan to get the clock down and start, making more mana and accelerating, and thinking, well, they may not have, another Tron piece, but then they kind of went the other Tron piece and then fetched the third one, and then it wasn't over after that. I could, Binding some things. They were playing some Thornot Seers that I could kind of cast Leyline Binding on and stuff like that, but I don't know. Let me know what you think. I think it's difficult with hindsight, knowing that I possibly should have Bindinged, but I was also afraid of them just having natural Tron, and then I haven't got a clock. And they also played 4 Chalice of the Void, so I wanted to get Ragavan down through that. But yeah, let me know what you think. So game 1's a very close game. I think at one point I discard a Lightning Bolt when the opponent has a Chalice of the Void to Fable, and then they kind of end up on 3 life, and I could have dealt with Chalice maybe and bolted them, but then yeah, I went on to game 2, brought in Thoughtseize and Consigned and stuff. Goes a bit better, I'm on the play, but I end up just getting kind of overwhelmed by the quantity of mana. They still have all the chalices. One point to note is you can consign a Chalice trigger, and also replicate gets around Chalice of the Void. So if they've got Chalice on 1 and they play Devourer of Destiny, and you want to counter both triggers, you consign, replicate it twice. Chalice of the Void will counter the initial proper version of Consign, but the 2 copies will go through and resolve. So that's just something. Game 2 is just pretty. This is the one where I got my opponent to 2 or 3 life, and I was just digging for any Tribal Flames or Flage, or Lightning Bolt, because I dealt with Chalice and just didn't find it in time before they found Ugin and was able to just start gaining life, and then it was just over. So that ended my tournament, but very good, very good tournament. I think I'd play the deck again. I think it's really powerful. There's actually a lot of Zoo there. I think it's really quite popular. And actually, I think it's the number 2 on Goldfish at the moment. So do expect Zoo if you go to your tournament. But I hope that was interesting to some. It's just a bit of a ramble podcast style thing on Zoo and how the tournament went. No more RCQs for me, sadly. That's probably it for now. But I will be going and last chance qualifying in where is it? It's Belgium somewhere. Antwerp, Belgium is the next regional championship in in Europe. So we're going there, playing on the Friday, jamming. Don't know what I'll jam. It's in November, so got a while to test. But if anyone's got any spicy deck lists they think I might enjoy, do let me know. And yeah, I will chat to you again soon. Let us know if you've got any questions in the comments. Cheers.